Are we there yet? When did you last ask that question? We've all done it. I've asked it on a long-haul flight after what seems like a whole day has passed and then it turns out I've only been in the air for 4 hours. Or what about long car journeys? When I'm driving a long distance, I sometimes avoid looking at the sat-nav for a few minutes in the hope that when I do look at it, I find I've driven 20 or 30 miles. I'm always disappointed when it turns out it's only been about 3 miles. Well, if you can identify with that feeling, spare a thought for the scientists at NASA. They launched a probe to Mars earlier this year and they've had to wait 7 months for it to reach its destination. 7 months. This week, the probe safely arrived on a red planet. You may be pleased or disappointed to hear that there was nobody on board the probe to ask, are we there yet? This was an unmanned mission. And the aim of the mission is to help scientists understand more about the core, the crust, and the mantle of Mars. These are the different layers that make up its structure. As you might expect, sending a probe to Mars isn't cheap. If you thought flying long-haul first class was expensive, and it is, well, it costs £633 million to get to Mars. There's something really interesting about this mission, aside from the science stuff that I won't pretend to understand. It's taken years of planning, months of waiting and hundreds of millions of pounds, yet all this was done in the knowledge that there was only a 40% chance of success. Less than half of the missions that have ever been launched to Mars have made it. So when a new mission is launched, everybody goes into the project knowing it is more likely that this won't work than that it will. Think about that for a second. Let it marinate. At the beginning of this process, people chose to dedicate years of their working lives. Politicians chose to dedicate hundreds of millions of dollars in public funds. Time, energy, and resources were invested into something that everyone knew full well was more likely to fail than to succeed. And they did it anyway. They weighed up the risk, they weighed up the reward, and they decided, let's do it. How do you feel about that? What do you think about that decision? Do you find it inspiring or baffling? Personally, I think it's pretty amazing. This idea of trying something bold and creative, even though there is a really good chance it might end in supposed failure. Now, to everyone who is naturally risk averse, I'm not crazy, I promise. Hear me out. Sometimes in life, you have to try something big, something daring, something you haven't done before, in spite of the fact that you aren't guaranteed success, in spite of the fact that it might crash and burn. Sometimes you have to take a risk. Now, I think the key word here is sometimes. It's not wise to order your life so that every undertaking you embark on has a 2/3 chance of failure. But it is healthy to dream big once in a while. If we think about the Mars probe, it's clear that a group of people dreamed big. Now that doesn't mean that they left everything to chance. It's possible to take a big risk and plan meticulously at the same time. This team would have planned diligently for every known eventuality. They had their bases covered. But what they couldn't do is plan for every unknown eventuality. It is space. There are far more unknowns than knowns. Yet they didn't let the fear of the unknown eventualities stop them from trying something big and bold, something they hadn't done before. Life is pretty similar. Sometimes you have to step out and try something big. To be honest, that's what the gift of life is for. Doing big things, taking that trip, starting that business, planting that church. Plan as hard as you can and don't let the unknowns stop you. And remember, there are plenty of eventualities that are unknown to us, but there is literally not one single eventuality that is unknown to God. And He is on your side. Or maybe you are on His side. Either way, He is with you and next to you. Include Him in your dreaming, involve Him in your planning, and trust Him in the bold step that you take to do something big, even if the odds are stacked against you. Now you may think this sounds a bit crazy, but I actually believe that this is sanctified thinking. And do you know why? Because this is what God did. He did something incredibly bold and adventurous when He created humanity. This was something that had never been done before. And it came with risk attached. He understood that things could go very wrong. In the New Testament, in the first letter of Peter, Peter tells us that Jesus Christ was destined before the foundation of the world to come and give his life as a ransom to save us. That means that before the Father, Son and Holy Spirit decided to embark on this bold mission, they knew there was a 100% chance of things initially going badly. That makes the 60% chance of failure that NASA weighed up look like a sure bet. In spite of the room for things to go south, God decided that humanity was worth creating. So he did the meticulous planning and then went ahead and did something bold and amazing. As we all know from this world that we live in, things did go south. But God trusted his ability to get things back on track and knew that in the end, his mission would turn out just as amazing as he wanted it to be. Spoiler alert, we know from flicking to the end of the Bible that things work out perfectly. That same God who tried something big, something risky, something that had never been done before, is with you in all that you do. Think about trying something big today. So here are 3 takeaways. Number 1, you have license to try something big and bold. Dare to dream. Number 2, don't be afraid of the odds being stacked against you, but do plan carefully and diligently for the anticipated outcomes. And finally, number 3, God is with you. It is God himself who declares, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you. God has shown throughout the history of the world that he doesn't do small. He does big and bold. So why would he want you to be any different? Start thinking about the big imprint that you can make on the world and start living a life less ordinary today.